Hi, Math 6 students.
I'm Mr. Delphin,
And Miss Huang.
and we want to welcome you to Multiplying Decimals by Whole Numbers.
The learning objective for today
Says, I can fluently multiply whole numbers and decimals.
we are going to start with vocabulary. Look at the left-hand side of your notes. Annex zeros, you remember from yesterday, means to place 0 at the beginning or end of a decimal. Product is an answer to a multiplication problem. Key concepts: use repeated, addition to help you place a decimal, the whole numbers represents the number of times the decimal is used. Place a decimal point in the product the same number of spaces from the right. We're going to start example 1. Let's estimate. 4 actually equals 4. But 0.83, it's about 1 whole. When you multiply these two, you'll get about 4. To get the precise answer, let's look at the grid and put our numbers in. So 0.83, multiply that by 4 whole. Notice I'm not lining the decimals up. I'm going to count my decimals later at the end. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. 4 times 0 is 0, and then the 3. And we count 2 place values. So from the right, 1, 2. As you can see, the answer 3.32 is pretty close to our estimate 4. And so we box our answer. To the right, you see how there's 4 groups of 0.83. So if we added 0.83 plus 0.83 plus 0.83 plus 0.83, we would get the answer 3.32.
Alright, so for example number 2, it says find 3 times 14 and 2 tenths. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take 14 and 2 tenths. If I look at that as money, it looks like $14.20, which is close to $14. And $3, well, that's equal to $3. So if I sit here and I multiply it, I get an answer that's close to 42. So I'm going to use the grid now to go ahead and find the accurate answer. I'm going to take 14 and 2 tenths times 3. Now if you look at it, I'm not lining up any decimals. All I'm going to do is start multiplying. So 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Now what I want to do, if I take a look at this number right here, 426 is not close to 42, which was my estimate. So what I want to remember is if I take a look at my original decimal, I've got 1 place value behind the decimal. So I need to move that 1 place value in my answer as well. So my answer becomes 42.6 which is close to my estimate of 42. Here in this diagram, if you take a look at what we have, we've got 14.2 and another group of 14.2 and another group of 14.2. If I was to add all three of those 14.2s, I would end up with my 42 6/10 answer. Alright, so now what we want you to do is to pause the video, complete the got it problems, and then play it back for some feedback. Alright, so example 4 says find 2 times 18 thousandths. The first thing I want to do is I want to estimate, so I know that 2 is equal to 2. And then 18 thousandths, if I think of that in terms of money, it's close to 1 cent. Because that looks like 1 cent right there. So that's close to $0. Okay, so if I want to sit here and I'm going to multiply 2 times 0, my answer is not going to equal to 0, but it's going to be approximately close to 0. Alright, so now that I find my estimate, I want to go ahead and find the accurate answer. So using the grid, I'm going to take the number that has more digits and I'm going to put it on top. And I'm going to multiply it by 2. If you notice, I'm not lining up any decimals because when you multiply, you just multiply each column. So I'm going to multiply 8 times 2, that's going to be 16, carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 2 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 0 is 0. Now if I look at my answer is 36. 36 is not close to 0, so I know that my answer cannot be correct. But what I need to do is I need to go back to my original problem and count the amount of place values I have behind the decimal. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 spots behind the decimal. The 2 has no numbers behind the decimal. So I'm just going to continue and say there's 3. 1, 2, 3. So my answer is equal to 36 thousandths. Now that is closer to my estimate of 0.
Pause this video, start your got it problems, and then play it back to get some feedback.
Here's example 6. A batch of trail mix calls for 1 2/10 pounds of dry cereal. Nigella is baking 5 batches of trail mix. She already has 2 2/10 pounds of cereal. How many more pounds of dry cereal does she need? So the first thing that I want to do for step 1 is I want to sit here and I'm going to multiply. I know that one batch is 1 2/10. So each batch is worth 1 2/10. I'm going to multiply that by 5 because Nigella is making 5 batches. So if I sit here and I multiply, this becomes a 0, that becomes a 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 1 is 6. Now I know that there is one place value in the problem, so I need to make sure I move it over one place value as well. So that's not my final answer. What I need to do now is I need to subtract, because that's the total amount of batches that she has. She already has 2 2/10, so I'm going to take 6 minus 2 2/10. Now when I'm doing this part, if you notice, my decimals are now lined up because I'm subtracting. So I'm going to borrow. That becomes a 5, and this becomes a 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8. Dropped on my decimal. 5 minus 2 is 3. So she needs 3 8/10 more pounds. Okay, so we've reached the end of the lesson.
And you're going to ask yourself, how do you feel after completing this lesson?